All right, we got our fresh batch of rankings, everybody, and the top 5 are the same. Texas Tech gets the blowout win over BYU, moves ahead of Ole Miss, who was out there against the Citadel. Oregon up 1 spot after the win at Iowa. That was a toughie. You see the rest. The cut line is still the number 10 spot, which Texas is now a part of, because you got the highest-ranked ACC team in Miami, highest group of 5, South Florida, down in the 24 spot. Let's rant and rave about this.
Not really.
Maybe not.
To rant about. Surprise, Georgia Tech is behind Miami.
Yeah, 1 loss.
2 loss versus 1 loss. And I would vote Indiana number 1. I shouldn't say I'm sorry, because I'm not going to apologize. I mean, they have proven. And this is the second scare of the season. Of course, earlier 2015 win on the road at Iowa. Mm-hmm. And then they found a way to win this past weekend in a place they've never won previously. I don't care if Penn State's having a bad season. Okay. Penn State stood up and acted like they had a pair.
Great win at Oregon.
And they played them tough. Great. Well, that's without saying, but this was a stellar win this past weekend, and I would have given them a heck of a lot more first-place votes.
I guess I would start by saying it is interesting that Miami's ahead of Georgia Tech in the ACC. It's the power of the victory over Notre Dame, and yet they don't get the credit for having beat Notre Dame, because actually Notre Dame is sitting there at number 9, well ahead of them, and yet half the schedule of Notre Dame is an ACC schedule. Yeah. It makes no sense, but that's where we are in the power of Notre Dame. Congratulations, Aaron.
And a big one against Pitt this week, which we'll pick in a bit.
It's a monster brand, and it resonates, as is the Texas brand, because the Texas brand is now in the field, despite the fact that literally 5 quarters ago, they were down 17 to Mississippi State in the 4th quarter and looking like it was over. And they come back, beat Mississippi State, who has 1 win in the SEC, beat Vanderbilt, who was picked to finish bottom. We are all fans of Vanderbilt. They're sitting at 14. But the facts of the matter are Texas brand resonates as well. So those 2 brands are getting all sorts of recognition. It's fascinating. 14 teams from the SEC in the top deal. That means 7 teams. If I pick out who wins the games from here on out, 7 teams could be 10 or 2 or better. And who's the odd ones out? Because there's not room for all of them. It is a fight to the finish.
You're saying 7 SEC teams. You put your yarn and thumbtacks on the wall, and depending on what happens, 7.
Like if Oklahoma wins out, Texas wins out, that means A&M's going to lose. That means Alabama's going to lose. But they sit there with only now 1 loss in conference. They're still going to be fine.
No wonder they don't want 4 automatic, and that's it.
I am sitting there. Exactly. This is going to, and if you're Brett Yormark and you're Jim Phillips, you have to go to automatics. You have to say I need 2, because they're going to get pushed out just because of the names of these, the brand recognition, and how it resonates in that committee room.
And not having much of a middle class, if you will, this year, too. It's right. It's like a bunch.
And Texas would resonate even more if it wasn't for that inexcusable loss in the swamp to Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, so Georgia Tech and BYU, to your point, Rick, are the lowest-ranked 1-loss teams. So clearly the committee doesn't see and view them as the rest of the deal. I think USF coming in there at 23rd means they control their own destiny. We were all enamored last week with JMU and all these computers and how they were going to be projected to have the clearest path all the way through. I'm really glad that didn't take place. USF's game this weekend at Navy is a monster. We knew that Navy's back half of their schedule is going to be really tough. USF's built a lot like North Texas, who beat Navy earlier in the year. USF basically controls its own destiny. If it wins out, it's going to be the highest-ranked Group of 5 champion. But what's interesting to me about this whole deal, fellas, is how many people are alive at this stage in the game.
Which is why it's
very
wonderful.
good.
Right. This is why it's good. You look at a team like Pitt, who's got Notre Dame this weekend, Georgia Tech and Miami. They could flip over the apple cart in the poker table in the ACC. You got a USC team that's got Iowa this weekend, Oregon next weekend. They could make some noise in the Big Ten, try to be that 4th Big Ten team that can get in there. And everything, Rick, that you mentioned about the SEC, there's going to be some really hurt feelings possibly down the stretch, because there's a lot of teams that are going to have resumes that are warranted being involved in the playoffs.
But at least they'll be 13th, if you will, and not 5th, like Florida State was.
100%.
If you look at these rankings right here, SMU can win their conference and be in the college football playoff again.
So
they're not even
Duke.
in the top 25.
So could Duke.
So could Duke.
Duke would be hard because they'll have 4 losses. That might be James Madison, assuming they run the team.
Correct.
And make the playoff.
Yes.
Right. Duke is the one who could win the ACC and allow a James Madison to join an American team.
Two Group of 5
2
teams.
G5s
We talk about hurt feelings. I mean, in your scenario, and I was listening to you earlier go through who beats who and how it is. I mean, you got 2 11-1 teams.
That's right.
And you've got 5 10-2 teams. Who gets left out? Which 3 teams?
Right now, it would be Vanderbilt. It would be Vanderbilt that would be left out. And who in that committee room wouldn't want to put Vandy in the tournament with a 10-2 record?
But, BJ, you talked about Indiana. I mentioned that last week, and I still agree. And I think if you look at Ohio State's schedule, there's only one thing really missing. And the main thing that's missing is you look at the end, and there's the obvious game, their last game against Michigan. And that's more than a test. That is about a skyscraper-sized hurdle for them over the last several years, beating Michigan. But other than that, they ought to win the rest of their games, and they're going to be all right. But where have they really been tested? Where have they been medal tested? Like, where are you at? Like the games you've seen Georgia
Not even week 1 that much, right?
No. So, I mean, where?
That was a test. 14
Not a heart palpitation like Indiana keeps going.
Not a coming back from the dead. You know, oh my God, the
and
Undertaker.
They'll face Indiana in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah. So they're going to have that chance, and it probably won't be that till then that we get to find out exactly what's going on.
Yeah. By the way, the whole thing about these SEC teams and who gets left out, it's not that different from last year.
No.
Where the argument was about SMU versus if Bama, Ole Miss, South
Carolina.
What we learned about last year is 3 losses is a bad deal.
Right.
Don't get 3 losses. And all these teams sitting in that top 14, starting with Vanderbilt, going to Oklahoma, Texas, and on down the list, Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. All of those teams are sitting there. We cannot go to 3.
Listen, and it's interesting we're having this conversation and making the point that there are so many teams that are still relevant and are in this because before the playoff, all the opponents of it were saying, oh, it's going to make the regular season non-relevant or irrelevant, however the damn word goes. And it is relevant right now. We've got huge matchups that are still sitting in front of us for the next three weeks that are going to help shake this thing out and determine who's going to get into the field.
But
just quick, does the 16-team playoff really make this better?
I don't know, man.
Somebody's always going to be unhappy.
The answer is money.
Yeah.
By the way, Notre Dame against Pitt is a much bigger game in this scenario than it would have been in the 4-team playoff. I mean, and maybe a conference championship for Pitt when they get through the Notre Dame game, but like Notre Dame cannot lose another game.
That's right.
Right? And Pitt's in position to win the ACC, so they've got a crazy schedule. And the ACC race itself, so these are the teams that are ranked, and I think one of you mentioned, okay, Miami has 2 losses. They're 1 spot ahead of Georgia Tech. That could work itself out. Virginia and Louisville, they lost, but they stayed pretty afloat compared to where they could have fallen to. Yeah. So this is going to be nuts down the stretch.
It is, and I think what we've given up in the meaningful regular season games, it just extends the playoff maybe a little bit forward into November a little bit because you look at a 5-4 Duke that can finish out 9-4 in an ACC champ. Those 4 losses didn't mean anything, but if they have a strong November, now all of a sudden they're relevant and in the dance. So we've given a little, we've gotten a lot, but it's still not a perfect system. And
never will be.
Narduzzi's sentiments I knew were tongue-in-cheek about, hey, I don't care, Notre Dame could beat us by 100. But there is some of the thinking about what we need to do to get to the playoff and are overlooking certain things during the regular season that is something we've never dealt with before. Again, I'm clear that Narduzzi was making a point about Notre Dame being in the ACC, but there's something about the regular season that we have lost, and we're now looking beyond it just to the playoff.
And you know what it is when you look at that top 4, right? Ohio State ends the year with Michigan. A&M now, thank goodness, goes back to ending the year with Texas, and Alabama will end their regular season with Auburn. It used to be where if they lost those games, then they were out. And now they'll still be okay.
Well, I disagree somewhat with what you just stated about Narduzzi and his comment. It's still a huge-ass game taking on Notre Dame. And the just fact that a de facto ACC member, that game doesn't count towards the conference schedule. I understand where he was going with that, but he still wants to win that as much as he wants to win all those conference games.
No, he does.
What about my comment? Did you like my comment?
Hell no.
Yours was a really good comment.
What did you say?
Yeah.
Remind me?
Rewind 30
Teach me how to
seconds.
say irrelevant again.
Click on full screen and then the back 30-second arrow.
Make sure you like and subscribe. Smash that button like it's the last donut in the box.
We'll send you something. And
Try to
comment.
fit in this box, ladies and gentlemen.